other hand. Thank you.
What's wrong with this hand?
The camera is right there.
Okay.
I'm Zeke. I'm first year in fiction at UK. I was born in Maryland. I'm coming from Brooklyn. That's all I'll say.
This is a poem, actually. It's called What It Costs. Alright. I was born dead, unwanted. Mom rushing down the postparters carnival highway to Nana's, Nana holding me, refusing to listen when Mom told her why, refusing what had always been known, what she had isolated and that throb in my mother's nightmares and her paintings, the heavy Catholic sheets. All of it heroically, Joan of Arc, Gandalf, come to a smoldering halt with the terror my mother felt lying eyes on me. She would ruin my body, pull me limb from limb, rape me. Jesus, take this cute, this harmless. God, keep me away so I don't, so I can't. But of course, I'm cute and less than the Tycho Box children that I resemble them, less than those who pay rent. Dad starting fights in the checkout with my new wife. Mom crying in the bedroom, not for him, but for him. What had happened when she was young as me and not for them. For the car not starting, never wanting the car to start in the first place, for the paintings that won't sell, and for the maybe one day selling. In the end times, mother turns against son, son against mother, husband against wife, daughter against father, self against self. Where is he? Why didn't he help when we needed it? Where were you? Just me, reaching out one slender hand to Mom, two arms around Dad to hold him back, jumping on the sunken couch, nobody looking so I might fall straight through. Just me looking. They might fall straight through if I don't make sure they might. Really, what did the debt cost? A child, a love, this break in family tradition. What would the bigger break cost? Learning disabled stamped in red on my freckled forehead, purple face explodings on classmates and teachers, clutchings at Mom's hairs. Primordially, in the jungles of my inner corridor, where down my nerve, choking my stomach sack, the words, Mom, do you? Do you maybe? 5 years old, I can take it. Either way, I'll protect you, little man, Superman. Yes, but, she says, always yes, but. How much? Between her and I, between you and I, between myself and I. Two selves who despise each other in one body, a raging battle spanning eras, fought in the landscapes of women's bodies. So charge me, lover. Charge me what it costs, you grandiosely hopeful, one self-promise, that impossible that could be, that wholeness, that I'll buy the whole pie, I'll bury my head in it type of pie, that godly thing. Who will pay me for it? Where will I put together the dough to meet? I promise I can, if given half a chance. That debt, that rotten tradition, that swamp, I'm good for it. I'm better than it. I've always been.
Hi everybody, I'm Peter.
Hi, Peter!
I'm coming from Kansas State University, and I wrote this story about northeastern Missouri. All you need to know is there's a man named Ronald Dean who sent a lot of pictures of his penis to women in the town, and this story is from the perspective of his 90-year-old mother, who would rather him not sell her house to pay for the settlement. Okay. Virginia had her hair pulled into a bun, but for one long strand that waved in front of her eyes. She wore a pleated linen skirt and a hunter green fleece with a big pewter elephant brooch on her chest and a pewter belt buckle and a paisley mold. She held a letter at her waist to read, but she realized she had memorized most of it. I am an old woman, but I am not a dead woman, Virginia said. I feel, Ronald Dean, that you have taken advantage of your mother's infirmity. But it ain't my infirmity, it's yours. I've always been a kind mother, Ronald Dean, never took more than I gave, and I feel that you are not the man that should have been the result of such a careful upbringing. I am not infirm, Ronald Dean. You have been plotting to sell my house, and as of late you are taking premeditated steps towards selling off my history and my property. 5 respectable women have sued you for your poor behavior, and I will not pay for that. Virginia pulled her chair back to the table and sat down. She looked to Ronald Dean, then looked to the paper and read, So I am cutting you off, cutting you out of my inheritance, Ronald Dean. She stopped reading. I know that I do not have anything to leave you, so this just means I never want to see you again. Ronald Dean just kept stuffing chicken and bean salad into his maw. It is not up to you, Ronald Dean said. What did you say? Virginia asked. It is not up to you, Ronald Dean said as he shoveled another bite. I'm going to sell it. You've got a litigation battle then, Milo said. Milo's the family lawyer. Your slimy fucking tricks won't stand, Ronald Dean said to Milo. Don't speak to him that way. Virginia slammed her glass onto the table, spilling wine onto the tarp. Have some respect. She leaned in and pointed at her son. Go into some goddamn debt. Sell your business. I'm not the only option here. What do you think I'll miss, Ma? I'm going to hope the highest bidders for Beanie Babies and Fiesta Wear come stomping down together for an estate sale. I've got things in that house worth more than your trailer. And who's going to die? Virginia asked. Look at you. Your heart will likely stop beating when that girl's on top of you later. There's so much gravel skipping through your arteries. Virginia motioned to Heather there at the corner of the trapezoid, bent over her plate of colorful food, forking her parsnips. And then what? Ronald Dean asked. You'll die someday. Sam will die someday. Ronald Dean pointed to Milo. That old Nancy gonna keep all your money? Milo has done so much for this family, Virginia said. She poured everyone more sweet wine. You're a bitter old bitch, Ronald Dean said. He looked at Virginia and then looked over to Sam. Sam looked to Milo. What are you going to do, Ronald Dean? Kill me? I'm not looking for violence, Ronald Dean said. I just think you take a little more care for your only child. It's settled, Virginia said. Just then, Fester's a rabbit with herpes horns. Fester dragged his head over a few feet from Ronald Dean to inspect a piece of tossed out bone. Ronald Dean looked back over his shoulder, corkscrewed up from his chair quicker than possible, cocked his bludgeon of a leg back and swung his fry boot into the sick rabbit and sent him sailing 15 feet into the air to crash through a school bus window. Oh no, Virginia said. She gripped the hem of her fleece. She detected a mildew scent mixed with the supper. She closed her eyes and listened to Ronald Dean breathe through his nose. Milo hurried over to the bus. He opened the door and several vultures flocked from the interior. Virginia kept still and watched Milo trudge through the entrails of the school bus to find Fester. She didn't watch Ronald Dean leave up the hill in the dented tow truck. She didn't look to Sam, who had placed a hand on her shoulder. She didn't turn to the house that her and Johnny had built 68 years earlier, right after Harry S. Truman took office. She looked to Milo as he bent over at the seats above the rear wheel well, and then came out a few moments later, holding Fester by the neck, like he was just any old dead rabbit. Thanks.
I'll just read one that will be getting published soon, called X. I kissed God on the cheek to avoid overwhelming him. We lay together on my roommate's dingy rug, listening to the weepies in the dark, our fingers gliding through threads, forming teal waves. He mounted strobe lights to my corneas, and my hands fell apart in the air. God said he felt like creating a galaxy with the pieces. He fashioned the crater too, throwing it beyond the Milky Way, in orbit around me. Amidst the space dust, we tumbled through the floor, between the joists, beyond the foundation, nestling ourselves into the dirt, like a meteorite burrowing below the Earth's crust. I stayed in the ground until dawn, when the sun kissed my skin and the dust danced around the rays. I didn't question God leaving me alone like a red star consuming itself. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leigh Glanzman. I'm a first-year poet. I'm most recently from Phoenix, as you'll see in my poem. And so this is called Dead Girl in a Dumpster Behind an Arby's in South Phoenix, Uncovered by Thursday's Monsoon. I shadow and scrape, delight my skeleton with water, a mouth memorizing the brown horizon, charred, tattered whistles. Desert growing wide and white with a bruise for an iris, a bruise for a jawbone, a bruise kissing the bruise of a throat. I sweep and star, stone seeing through a heart, or a fence cradling scattered teeth, a wish racing the river into dark, green singed to exhaustion. Drought sighing across these hands, a scream for an eyelid, too much want, a scream buried in the bruise of a throat, or I, scale and sediment, spine of salt and clementines, lime-soaked names rankling abscessed tongue, divine pen plotting maps, borders ringing sun. Parchment, steering blue as blue can blind, binding palm to cheek, sting to wound, recount fingers, nose, toes, beating wings, askew. I, skeptic and scar, glare stringing across a room, or star to star, inertia sweet as universe escaping God's plan, far-flung and planetless, or just floodlights sticking to skin and sirens blue and silent, songless in the city's deep. I citizen, I stain, I scent of rain.
Howdy, folks.
Hi, Isabelle.
Hello. Wow. My name is Isabelle. I'm a second-year fiction student. And I'm just going to jump into the preface. I was supposed to be last, so I was fully planning on keeping you all captive here for longer than I was allowed to. But now you just have to deal with it. So the story is called Protocol, and it originated out of me wondering what the world would be like if we kept computer technology at the same level as it was when we invented computers in the 40s with card punchers and stuff. And then every story that I've ever written, it slowly became about the two things that occupy my life the most, which is social anxiety and the fear that computers will take over my life. So that's in there. There's some modulation through queer identity and stuff like that too. And the only things that you need to know is that Allison is Gabriel's boss, who is the protagonist, who is a grunt at this tech company that makes deep learning robots. And Rashid is a grad student who you'll meet. Cool. And if I forget anything, then it'll just come up. Rashid looked expectantly at Gabriel. He turned to lean forward again, still unsure of the mic's location. Yes? The computer just asked him a question. That's all you need to know. Excellent. Why don't you tell me about your plans for this evening? Sounds like she's taken a shine to you, Tiger, Rashid said. Gabriel turned to see him standing in the doorway. The light streaming in behind him sliced through the room like a beam, and his ears shone translucent and pink on either side of his face. Those big ears. A flaw that, rather than detracted from, drew attention and laser focus to the valuable. Marilyn Monroe's mole, Venus de Milo's missing arms, Rashid's ears. Goosebumps prickled along the sides of Gabriel's arms. The jinx. He had focused too long on the grad student's face and started to feel lightheaded and far too aware of his own skeleton. There's a really good line ahead of that where he talks about if you look at someone who's too hot for too long, then you can't actually talk to them like a normal person. If you read the thing, you'll find it out. It's good. He darted his gaze down to his own lap where his knobbly brown fingers were interlocked. He wiggled them, thinking about the many strange bones within and how they moved against one another. Okay, I think I got it, Gabriel said. It wasn't a lie, but his voice wavered like it was. All right, Rashid said from the doorway. You're set, I'm set, and Allison's none the wiser. See you, Gabe. The door shut with a rush of air that tickled at Gabriel's neck. It took him a while to adjust to the darkness. There was a small dim bulb ahead, covered in a tinted cellophane, which provided the suggestion of brightness. Enough to see around the room, to see the texture of the machine, covered with different bulbs and slots and switches. He could barely make out the card table in the corner, littered with crumbs and papers. 3 impossibly long reams of cards spooled up and into the computer in spurts, disappearing into its chassis, only to return back out. Rashid was right. The process was almost finished. Ribbons of finished cards, already digested by the computer, lay in a squiggly pile on the floor. Please tell me about your plans for this evening, the computer said. It was the same cadence as before, the same pastiche of Allison's voice and intonation. Parts of miracle minuscule scale, sliding around in concert, moved the aperture back and forth like the head of a curious animal. There's a camera. Gabriel looked back at the doorway for Rashid, half expecting to be obliterated by a concealed laser, forgetting the grad student had gone. He turned back slowly to face the computer. I suppose I'll go home, Gabriel said, voice faltering at the novelty of the situation. A room, empty and not empty. A voice, familiar and unfamiliar. The cards stayed where they were loaded. Normally it worked on a response right away. Perhaps he had to say more. And then I'll make dinner? and then I'll go to bed. It occurred to him that perhaps he was supposed to pretend to be Rashid, and he had just bungled the entire thing. Rashid had a date at lunch. Who's to say what he'd do once he punched out? Visions of packed ashtrays and sweating glasses, filled with liquor and chipped ice, plowed through Gabriel's imagination. The thought of being in a place like that, the kind where people had entire conversations made of glances, made his skin clammy. He had only ever been outside of clubs, so it wasn't as if he could convincingly talk about one, even to a computer. Perhaps it was for the best. If Gabriel fabricated something too outlandish, he'd also get caught. That's it.
I'm Kaylen. I'm a first-year poet in the MFA program, and I'm going to read two kind of small poems. The first one is called Inheritance Ivoire. You conquered the defenseless. You satisfied a willingness to peel off another's fingernails, to cut the scalp off a child, to hang a woman for raising her gaze. This is the truth. Whether you like it or not, you will inherit this history. The one of the peeler and not the peeled, the one of the scalper and not the scalped, the one of the hangman and not the hanged. This is your inheritance. You must look. And this one is called Since August. When moonlight shines through slanted blinds, I lie awake, eyes closed, open, closed, my mind turning over. I see overgrown yard. I smell rancid wafting. I feel floating down hall. I see cat shit caked on carpet, on bedspread. I see my poem pinned to wall. I see her clothes hanging. I see his clothes folded after 18 years, handgun resting on top, silent. It came one choice after another, but still, I cannot believe this is how our story ends. I see her body, which I never saw. I smell her body, which I had to smell. It crept under funeral home door. I sat, crying, praying, palms against wood. I was whispering to her about peace.